Yeah, I want to welcome everyone to our Monday, December 6th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Commissioners. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start our meeting with a report from our attorney, Matt Shipman.
Hey, good afternoon. The only things that really have to report is obviously we're making progress on getting the contracts for our owner's rep as well as the architect for the jail, and we had a good productive meeting this morning on that. And I've also had a chance now to review the resolutions related to the TIF district for Churubusco, and those seem fine with me as long as the commissioners are fine with that, and as well as the ordinance related to from the treasurer's office to kind of only have to send one bill when it's $25 or less. I think that's probably on here. Maybe it's not. So sure she's here. So but anyway, I've looked at that as well, and that one's also fine. If you guys haven't seen that though, we can deal with that next month. I don't have anything else unless you guys have questions for me.
I don't have any.
Anything? Okay, next on the agenda, we have Judge Brensler, Public Defender Board appointment.
Thank you. Thank you for putting me in front of the line. I hate to do that, but I gotta get back to hearings. Do that. Bill Tucker is a longtime member of the Public Defender Board. He called me a few months ago, and he is ready to retire from that position. So we're looking to replace him on the board, and we put our collective heads together. And we thought Kathy Huber would be a good person to sit on the board. She's represented this region very well in other capacities, and we think her name would be great to submit to you as a potential replacement for Bill Tucker on the Public Defender Board. I know George has some questions about the board, and Doug Paul and I did our best to answer those questions through email. I hope that was satisfactory. If you have any questions, you have all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any knowledge of the board. I didn't know we had an appointment to the board. Can you talk a little bit about what the board does?
Sure. The Public Defender Board is an agency that is in place to serve as sort of a buffer between judges and actual attorneys who are giving public defender services. As I explained to George in the email, it's sometimes the interests of public defenders and judges come in conflict. Public defenders should not be afraid to say, Judge, you're doing this wrong. Judge, you shouldn't be doing that. Judge, you need to vindicate my client's rights in this fashion. So the potential is there for judges to select and employ public defenders who are very, who will not challenge the judge, who won't defend their client's interests in a way that is conducive. And so the Public Defender Board is sort of an intermediate agency of persons who are, whose main responsibility it is to select attorneys to serve as public defenders, to contract with them. The Public Defender Agency has been in existence for as long as I've been in public defense, 20, 25 years at least. And actually, the membership has not changed very much in that last 20 or 25 years. It's one of the times we've had to replace one of the members on the board.
But we, I mean, there are terms for appointments, right?
I don't know that there are. I think it's an appointment until otherwise indicated, until they're taken off the board. That's the way the practice has been anyway since the last 25 years.
Sure, it's interesting.
I think Kathy's a great pick. I have no issues.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept Kathy Hewer as a replacement for Bill Tucker on the Public Defender Board.
Okay, we've got a motion.
I'll second.
Got a second. Further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you, Judge.
Very much appreciate it.
Next on the agenda, we have Amy Motter for the support dog discussion. I didn't know if you'd be back or not. Please. Yeah.
Julie's going to come up as well, because this is actually, I wrote the grant, but this is going to be in collaboration with Community Corrections and Probation. We are seeking a support dog for the Probation Department as well as Community Corrections. And I have been writing grants and things like that to come up with the funding. But what I'm asking is if you all would approve to cover the dog under the liability policy of the county. I sent you, I don't know if you all received the email with all the information. So I'm willing to answer any questions, but basically the purpose of the dog is listed in there. And I'm just asking for the county to cover it under the insurance.
I read through all of the information that you guys sent. So who does the dog live with?
The dog will live at the work release facility.
Okay,
It will have basically have its own room there.
okay,
If, because we don't have one, this is all new. If for some reason that goes awry, that we find out that's not the best fit, then either Julie or I will be splitting. We will be the co-handlers for the dog.
okay. Because I think that was my only concern, just as like with the canine, I wouldn't want it to switch, because it's still a being and
Yeah.
I want it to be well taken care of.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that it will be, and Paula's on board with it and everything.
Absolutely.
Okay. I have no issues with it. Do we know how much it costs to add the dog?
My question is.
Do we even know if we can add the dog? Has
Right.
anyone asked that question?
I think we have to get a hold of the insurance company. We, with us being gone last week, we really didn't get anything
Because
done.
they may not cover it. I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, we'll cover it. It's the insurance is, Julie and I talked about this a little bit, and I think the way we will protect ourselves is get a release and make sure that participants, as part of what they sign to participate, will have to sign a release that says that the dog will be there. But
Don't we have a release on some,
We had one for an employee that had a support dog,
right?
but that dog was his dog that came to work with him. And so no other person or participant was allowed to interact with the dog.
Right.
So this will be completely different.
Okay.
And this dog will, the meaning behind it is definitely to interact with those folks that are, struggling with trauma and other things. And DJ also would like the dog to come to his office on days they do child interviews. And the stress for those children that have gone through that process as well.
And is the grant been turned in, or when is it due?
Yes, I turned in the grant with the Community Foundation. It was due at the beginning of December, so we're waiting to hear that. The prosecutor's office has agreed to put up 1/3 of the cost, the upfront cost. We have enough in probation user fees to pay 1/3, and so I asked the Community Foundation to pay 1/3 of the upfront cost plus the first year of services that the dog will need, food, that kind of thing. And then we'll be applying for additional grants after that. I know through the JDAI, that might be a fit for future funding for the dog as
Oh,
well.
that would be a
Yeah.
really good fit.
Yeah.
Okay.
perhaps a way to deal with it is that if it's possible to cover it, make a motion that says, if we can, we would. That way they don't have to come back to another meeting where we're finding out whether we can cover it. I just don't know the answer to that.
I guess my question too is, does the county cover like the canines, the sheriff's department canine in such a fashion?
I'm sure.
I'm
they
sure
do.
we have some.
Yeah, but that's a little different
Okay,
interaction.
I
with
just didn't know if that was, yeah.
I think
It's a
personally,
little
I feel
different,
more
right?
comfortable exploring this with our insurance before giving a commitment. Because if we said we would, and then we learned something
Yeah.
surprising.
Like it's
then
gonna be an extra $500,000 of,
Right.
it could be, yeah, you're right.
I would
And-
feel most comfortable having a conversation with insurance first.
And I do know that Posey County Probation has a dog, as well as there's a judge out of Howard County has a dog. So those might be other counties to reach out to.
I was going to ask that if you'd heard of any other county.
Yeah,
that's doing that.
Bartholomew County, I believe, their judge has a dog.
Okay.
Whoever reaches out to them, just make sure they tell them that we will get a release. So there will be a release, but there's always a loophole and you gotta,
Who,
That'll make
is that, do I need to reach out to the insurance company, or is that something?
So
I think
we'll
we
take
will.
care of that.
Okay.
And then we'll just, if we'll probably just table this until the next meeting, and that way it'll give us a chance to look into it. But the dog's not going to come in between that time anyway,
No,
so.
the,
okay.
the breeder and trainer we have chosen, the dog's not even bred yet. We're looking at next summer, probably before the earliest we would have a
Okay.
dog that's been trained and raised, things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to table then?
So moved.
You've got a motion?
I'll second that with an addendum that we table it to the next meeting on the 20th with insurance cost and information. If that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same.
Thank you.
See you next meeting. Okay, we have a excluded positions discussion, and I think, is Jen here? Do you want to explain?
Jennifer Shinneberry, HR Director. So the situation is that in 2019, we contracted with WIS to do several things. And one of the things we contracted them to do is to do an FLSA audit. And in that audit, along with the job descriptions, they classified each job as either exempt, non-exempt, or excluded. Previously, before that audit, we only had non-exempt and exempt. So the excluded was something that was new to everyone. So I think what maybe happened was people didn't fully understand what it was, or somehow it didn't get communicated. But then council also passed an ordinance, 2019-11, stating that exempt, excluded, and non-exempt, that non-exempt and excluded would not be eligible for overtime or comp time, where previously the positions that were now considered excluded were before non-exempt, and they were, at least one in particular, Chief Deputy Sheriff, has always traditionally accrued overtime. So the decision needs to be made whether to stick with what council and commissioners put into an ordinance, and I'm not sure that anybody even realized what they were doing, but to hold to it that excluded positions do not receive overtime and comp time, or to make a separate pay policy that allows those positions to receive overtime and comp time. And those positions are only chief deputies and the jail matron.
What prompted this discussion?
It was discovered we're changing over our system for timekeeping. And the auditor's office asked me whether certain positions, because they have to enter that into the system, I guess now, that whether a position is exempt or non-exempt. So they were questioning me on a few positions, and that's how it was discovered. I was explaining to them that they're neither, they're excluded. And then from there, we had the discussion.
Have we had any follow-up conversations with WIS why they had that recommendation to begin with? Like,
they are following what the guidelines are for FLSA.
their standard labor act,
Correct.
right?
Correct. So the other piece that if we do go forward and hold to the ordinance, their recommendation is to consider those positions that have traditionally received overtime and comp time to increase their wage to accommodate for them now not being able to.
Isn't that why council approved the 85, is it 85% rule?
Correct, but I believe that the jail matron and the chief deputy sheriff are not following that rule. So those two positions may need to be looked at. And out of those positions, I believe, and I could be wrong, and you may want to hear from some of the department heads, but my understanding is that the chief deputy is the only one that traditionally receives overtime.
So since council passed that ordinance, would this be more appropriate to go through in a council meeting?
Well, the way it was explained to me in an email from WIS that I shared with you in your packets was that it needs to be a commissioner and council decision jointly. So that's why it's going to you today, and then tomorrow it's going before council. But that's the best way I know how to explain it. Like I said, I think it might be a good idea to, I don't know if you want to hear from, or if you've already heard from department heads to see how any of this would affect them.
I'd love to hear from them. Do we have time for that? Some of them are here. We could hear from them
Yeah.
now. Or is anyone prepared? I'd love to hear from you, Rosemary.
Can you come up here and talk, please? Thank you.
Being a two-person office, I mean, we have a part-time person, but she only works 2 days a week and can't work any other days. If one of us are off, we would have to work however many days that is. And once in my working in the recorder's office, I worked 12 weeks straight through all lunch hours and didn't take any time off. It's a problem because I don't have anybody to step in to assist that person so they can take a lunch hour, or if something comes up, they need to take off. We've always just said, if you work through the lunch hour, then you get that hour off usually within that week. But it's a problem in our office because we don't have the personnel for that. I mean, some of the others have more people, so their chief deputy can, they go and do whatever they want to do. I just think somehow you have to be allowed to make the employees, which I don't, but my chief deputy, you work 10 days straight without a lunch hour, you feel like you ought to get something off, or even 5 days. And with COVID, we've run into that with weeks and being off. I don't know. That's my opinion.
I think it's a great point. I'm in favor of elected officials and supervisors being able to make those decisions and manage their own departments. And if that means giving somebody comp time, even if it's not used in the same week, I'm in favor of that.
I mean, we used to just keep a log and say, okay, you have this many, not necessarily on the timesheet card, and mark them off as they use those days. I don't know. It worked, but at least that way they felt working all day long, so many days in a row, there was some compensation for it. That's all I have. Mm-hmm.
Mark Gavin, Sheriff of the county. So this will be, since I've been Chief Deputy Sheriff, this is the third time this has come up now, at least for our department. When I was Chief Deputy, they tried to make it exempt, but the job duties included I was still working the road. So they said, well, then you're actually non-exempt because you're still doing duties of the other. And then it was changed the next time, and Jason was Chief Deputy. And I came into council and said, well, if he's going to be exempt, he needs the 85% rule like all the other chief deputies. Well, either Glenn LaRue or Jim Bayman made a motion immediately that
the chief deputy of the sheriff's department was excluded from the 85% rule. And he went back to getting comp time or overtime. So that's where we've fallen. I missed it when we had the jobs done in 19 that it went to excluded. I didn't even catch that. So my opinion is to keep Jason as is, or like this recommends, getting a bump in pay because he comes in on weekends, sometimes covers the road and still works out like the deputies do. So. Questions?
So is it, do you give extra time off, or is it just additional pay that you usually deal with?
Usually at our department, we just do additional pay due to the fact of the amount of PTO most people have, and we don't want to cure. And then if we try to follow the handbook rules where you're supposed to use it in a quarter, it normally doesn't work out that well.
Okay.
And we did try the sheriff's department once, but we came to the end of the year and then we had to, were you on council then when we had to ask the money to pay the PTO out because we didn't have enough staff to use it and that cost?
Sounds familiar, but I don't.
So that's why we don't accrue any additional PTO over at the sheriff's department.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Anyone else? Kim?
I'll just- County Assessor. I just kind of want to chime with what Rosemary said for our office as well. We don't have any part-time person in our office. It's just the three of us. So obviously with the two deputies that I do have, their PTO time continues to grow with longevity. So that limits their time out of the office as each year goes by. I would say that where we're headed with our growth, it's a very good possibility that that could come up down the road versus having to come and ask for another full-time paid employee with benefits. I mean, that is a high possibility for our office. I know looking back at the past chief deputy job descriptions, and even when I was chief deputy, they said non-exempt. So when this happened through WIS, obviously when the email came out, none of us in this building anyway knew that that was changed. It was done in an ordinance, but going back and listening to that September 4th meeting in 2019, that wasn't discussed in that open meeting. So when that took place through WIS and coming back that way, it's not anything that was communicated to any of us. I mean, obviously that's done in the past now, but none of us were aware of that until just recently that had been changed. So from a chief deputy aspect of it, leaving it in that excluded status, so to speak, limits them from not being able to have any comp or PTO or additional comp time.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks, Kim.
Anyone else? Oh, I think personally, I think that these individuals deserve to be paid. I'm not really sure how they came up with excluded, where they're not salaried, but yet they can't earn any comp time or overtime, and it seems to be a big issue. And I think people should be compensated if they're going to be working. Commissioner Trump, anything?
Yeah, well, I feel the same way on it, but I'm not sure, trying to think with the ordinance that we have, it's going to have to go back to council with our recommendations, I guess, but Commissioner, do you have any thoughts on that then?
No, I'm inclined to agree. I think that it's a count. I understand that with said commissioners and council, but I think it's a council ordinance directly related to the salary ordinance. And I would be comfortable with the Board of Commissioners recommending amendments. If you need that in a motion, then
Sure.
we can do that.
Why don't we do that if you would?
I would like to make a motion that we serve a favorable pass for amendments to ordinance. Be specific to
2019-11, I think is what that.
2019-11, yes. that would allow for compensation of overtime hours.
So you would be in favor of amending it in favor of compensating them with overtime or comp time?
Yes.
And actually, what we would be doing is turning it over to the department heads to determine how they wanted to recompense, whether it be time off or extra pay.
I'll second that.
So we got a motion, we got a second. Further discussions?
This is just for the excluded positions, right?
Just the excluded
Just
positions.
For
yeah.
purposes of your motion, I think that's what we're talking about.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. So we'll present it to the council in the morning. And okay. Next one, Nathan Bilger, the Fitch Unsafe Building and Churubusco TIF. We also have Scott Wagner, our Director of Health Department.
Craig is in ER right now with his wife, so. Make it.
Good to hear that. Not that he's in the ER. Scott clarified that it's not urgent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they just couldn't get into somewhere a little less emergent, so. So the status of 709 North, Stayward 5, Larwell, Ralph Fitch's property. Back in October, we took bids for demolition of that property, and Mr. Fitch was here at the time, and the commissioners opted to say, hey, Mr. Fitch, work with staff to try and figure out a means to avoid having to proceed with demolition. Scott, you want to?
Yeah, as of right now, Mr. Fitch has not contacted me personally, either by email or phone. A contractor does septic systems did call me on the phone and said that Rob had talked to him when they know he needed to do so. So I communicated that back with the contractor. But I've not heard anything since that time. It's been about 10 days. As far as I know, the status of the home is the same. You'll see on the pictures as it comes around, there's been a horse trailer backed up to the front porch, so I don't know if he's cleaning the home, removing only good items, we don't know. But you'll also see pictures that were taken the day that Craig and I went out and inspected the home. Also, some pictures to Nathan from 2018. So actually, it's gotten worse since 2018. So.
And just to clarify, he was given a specific list of things to fix in a specific amount of time, and he has not done that, correct?
Yeah, at our time, when I went that day after the commission meeting, I gave him a list from 2018. It was the order at that time. And since that, Craig has also sent him a list from the building department's perspective and added in the health department's list as well. He does have that on his list.
There were some items on that 2018 list that were removed.
Right, I circled the ones that he needed to do. Mostly the septic system and giant trash outside.
But unfortunately, we don't know what has been done, if anything.
And the burden fell on him to let us know, correct?
I will say that the trailer, as Scott said, appears to be partially filled with things from the house, but I've also had cases in the past when trash just appears on a property since there's an order to demolish and clear it. So it's going to be carted off at someone else's done. So I can't say whether that's the case here.
Both of you have gone above and beyond for this. We had a bid at, was it the first or second meeting in October? I don't remember, but the bid was good for 60 days. And we had discussed that if he did everything that was asked of him, that we could postpone that, and then we would have to obviously go out for a bid again because the bid was only good for 60 days. He has not done that. So I will make a motion that we proceed with the demolition.
As a matter of clarification, 60 days, I believe it was October 14th, so 60 days would fall on December 12th, I guess, or 13th. Do you want to give him that full time and make the award on the 60th day?
No, I
Okay.
think that we can award it today.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the demolition of the Fitch building. Effective right away. We've got a second. Further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same.
Thank you. We will let the contractor know. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to the Churubusco Resolution, Madeline C. Bartle and Lisa. Thank you. From the Redevelopment Commission are here as well in the audience. If you have questions for them, this was brought up at the last meeting and you guys hadn't had a chance to review the documents yet. So hopefully you've had a chance now to do so.
You had referenced earlier that you've had a chance to review the documents.
I have now had a chance to, and they seem appropriate given the statutes to me, so.
Is there a resolution number?
Yes, it is 11/09/2021.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 1109-2021.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve resolution number 1109-2021, which is a resolution of Whitley County Redevelopment Commission, Whitley County, Indiana, consenting to the assignment of an area within the county to the Redevelopment Commission for the town of Churubusco, Indiana, for the purpose of allocation of property tax proceeds.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's the title of the Redevelopment Commission resolution, not the commission.
Okay, do you have the?
Yeah, I wondered that.
I think
Can I make
that's
sure
the
that-
same resolution number as the redevelopment commission one
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
And then we need a resolution number for commissioners.
So we can make. We can make this on the 2021-10.
Which is. Have you got a copy of that then? Okay, so this will be actually for the resolution number 1110-2021. Do we have a amendment?
My motion to include 1110-2021.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. President, I do have one plat. If I could insert that into the agenda, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is a one lot plat to be called Sunrise Sunset, located along County Road 200 East. This was before the Plan Commission at their November meeting and received approval from them.
Nothing unusual.
Pretty standard 1 month plat. The only note was the title had a hyphen originally and the recording indexing system doesn't like punctuation. So that was removed.
I'll move that we approve the request as presented.
Got a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a second? Discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you. Anything else?
Not today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Brandon Forrester, Highway Department update and Drainage Board reappointment.
Good afternoon. As far as the Drainage Board, Steve Sycophus is the current chairman of the Drainage Board. He's been a very active member for a number of years. His term is up at the end of the year, and he has agreed to continue on in that position. So that would be our recommendation that he be reappointed to the Drainage Board.
I'd just like to say that Mr. Sekapus has been a great addition to the Drainage Board, and it's a great board, it really is. And,
I agree. He does a very good job as chair.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the reappointment for Steve Sycophus for the Whitley County Drainage Board for a 3-year term.
Yeah, we've got a motion.
Second.
Got a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you.
Thank you. So this morning we had our annual major supply bid opening. We will go through those and provide a summary and recommendations at your next regular meeting. Also regarding the highway, we've just kind of been getting geared up towards the winter season, getting some roads, some final patching done, and getting some gravel roads graded as best we can, working on some drainage projects and a little bit of deep brushing.
So far, so good.
Yeah, our small problem that we have is the ice grit product that we've been using for 5 years is not available.
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to have to mix some materials. We're going to try some number 12s and some 23 or 24 sand and mix that together and then mix it with salt, of course. And the problem with just straight sand is it's lighter, so it tends to end up on the edge of the road. Depending on whether it's ice or, snow, it's going to vary, but so.
So what's the problem with the grit? Is it just there's shortage of it?
We're told it's not available. I mean, if If you don't have it, and it all comes from one source, which is Stone Street up in Garrett. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. I didn't ask them why, but we've never had a problem. We order 500,000 ton at a time and it's there. Sometimes they start delivering the same day. So our guess is maybe someone has found it to be used for a different operation and the supplies just dwindled.
Sure.
So, other than that, the forecast looks good.
Yeah, it really does.
Temperatures and precipitation, so we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope it stays that way.
Well, thank you, Brandon.
Yep, thank you.
Next, we have for the National Opioid Settlement Participation Form. I think we opted in.
It's the original.
Okay.
I did look at that. I forgot to mention that in my report, but I have Cami sent that to me and I had seen it and looked at it before. It's just the same form everybody else is signing to opt in. I think the deadline is passed to opt out, so.
Yeah. Ends January 2nd, 2022, I think is what it says here. Sign on period. So this is, there's monies going to be available for a settlement, national settlement for the opioid overuse, I guess is what it is. And so we did opt in on that, and now we're asking for to be signed the participant form. It looks like one commissioner to sign that.
What is our obligation then at that point?
We don't have an obligation. So the way that the money comes into the state and then it's divvied up, a lot of it is actually retained at the state. I can't remember the exact percentage, but we get like 15% of it or something is passed down to the local communities. So we'll just get a portion of the money. It's not going to be significant, I don't think, because most of it is staying at the state level to do programming and things and pay for some services that they're, I think, still developing what those look like.
So if we would have opted out, then we would have had to act on our own behalf.
Yeah, and some communities have done that. And the main reason they opted out was because a lot of communities felt like the state was keeping all the money and that they wanted to be able to keep a bigger portion of the money for. Now, obviously, you have to pay the lawyer to do that part for you. And the reality is whether you would have netted out any better or worse. Right. And they haven't won. I mean, there is no settlement with the people that have opted out, I don't believe. So it all may get tossed anyway, apparently, from what I've currently reading. So yeah, maybe there's a bunch of challenges to whether the settlement was even fair to begin with. And those are going out through the court system.
I have no issues with it.
Okay, I think we got a question, Scott. Sure. Excuse me.
As a director of the health department, we deal with opioid quite a bit, where we do have naloxone, not only for all of our high schools and also our law enforcement and firefighters. We also deal with opioid through our it used to be opioids task force, now it's called the addictions task force. We also deal with that there too. So just an option, if you whatever money you might get, if you would like to give that organization some of that money to help fight that, that would be a great thing to do. On that addictions task force, we have all of our community partners, Parkview, Lutheran, Bowen Center, Choices and Changes, as well as law enforcement and other participants helping to stem that issue in Whitley County. And we do have multiple overdose deaths every year in Whitley County. So that, if you find that to be an option, that'd be great to have some money there to fight that. So.
Okay. Are we having any, is it a huge issue with us right now again
It's not
with the opioids or?
if you look at percentages, the last quarter, we've had at least 2 overdose deaths. And the reason why we went from opioid task force to addictions is we still have overdose deaths with alcohol and other things too. So that's why we did want to limit that. But yes, we do have opioid deaths. I can't tell you exactly, but we're probably around 5 or 6 for the year so far. That's been, that we know of, that actually were Whitley County deaths. Many of the people who overdose or are on their path to that are in Fort Wayne when they die. So sometimes it's very hard for us to get that information.
Sure. Fentanyl, is that?
There has been one of those. Otherwise, heroin is another one. So we still see a lot of fentanyl mixture heroin where it's usually an oral taken, and these are by no means pharmaceutical experts. So it's whatever blender they take out and stamp a pill, and that's what you get. So I don't think it was as bad as it was 10 years ago, but we're starting to see an increase again, methamphetamine as well.
Okay, thank you. And we will take that into consideration.
I have no issues with it. I mean, I think as a county to go off on our own, we're not in any position to do that. So a little bit of money is better than no money at all, just to totally opt out.
So is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the registration for the settlement, for the opioid settlement. That should be, we got a second. Discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you. Jimmy just wanted to go. Cami Hippenhammer, facilities requests.
I got it.
Okay. Okay, it looks like we've got one for Kelly Deacon. The gazebo for December 24th. It's for Christmas songs live, and then on YouTube and Facebook.
My only issue with it is this is a really outdated form. So I don't know if we need to table it so she can get the correct one.
What's outdated?
All of the commissioners and then also the auditor. And I don't know if anything else has changed in the body of it since then.
I think we can line out those old names and sign over them since it's just a facilities request, an internal document. So I make a motion that we approve.
Okay, we got a motion to approve.
Second?
Got a second. Further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have payroll and accounts payable claims approvals. Teresa?
I went up and looked over all of the transactions. Everything looked to be in order and payroll looked to be good.
Great.
So I would make a motion that we approve payroll and accounts payable claims.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve payroll and accounts payable claims.
Second.
We got a second. Further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you.
Oh, I see there's more in there.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes for November 15th, 2021?
Yes, I did review. I didn't find any issue. I knew that we approved them as presented.
And we
Second.
got a motion and a second to approve the minutes for November 15th, 2021. Do we have any further discussions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Thank you. Matt, did you have anything further?
I don't have anything further other than just kind of to put something on your radar. We did hear from the countywide sewer district from SRF our funding, and we had asked for approximately $10 million in grant. The SRF actually awarded the countywide sewer district $5 million in grant money because of that, they had to cut the project in half, and we're in the process of identifying what those initial projects likely are going to be to get closer to that amount of money. I think as part of that process, the Board of Trustees of the countywide sewer district really wants to try to do everything they can to keep the rates under $100 and as close as possible to 80. And so at some point, once we hammer out what that looks like, there may be an additional request again for some of those ARP funds to help try and keep that cost low. I'm not sure if that's going to be a December meeting or January, and I don't know whether or not that's still an option, but just something that may come up. I think they may tie that to potentially, and I don't know the exact number of those funds that were paid previously to the previous consultant, ultimately that ended up not particularly beneficial. And if we, at least that, because we're paying for that as part of this project, ultimately, if there was a way to use some of those funds to reimburse that part of it, at least, would make it so potentially that the sewer district would start off without any debt, because the operation and maintenance fees are really expensive for the operators that we're going to have to send the sewage to. It's still going to make the rates high, even with little to no debt. So that's not I'm not asking, just kind of putting that on your radar that may come up again at some point. So
Is that 5 million, is that a matching or a?
no, it's just grant money. And so the initial project was like 10.5, 11 million. As a result, we're trying to get our board together with holidays. It's been difficult to figure out what we're going to strip out of the projects. We can't do $10 million worth of projects. we'll just do the next, whatever we pull out, we'll try and do again next year, and you'll just have to piecemeal it a little bit more, which is fine. But like any big infrastructure project, unfortunately, so many of the soft costs and the processing and treatment, all those things cost a lot, pretty much the same amount, whether you have 100 customers or 500. And so it's making it a little bit more difficult with a smaller project because the cost to scale the project to get it to a point where the rates are reasonable. And we're really trying to do they're trying to do a blended rate, so everybody will pay the same amount. So we've come up with some really creative potential ways to do that, to still be able to use the grant funds. But you know, there's that request still may come at some point. So
Thank you.
in case you haven't spent all the money, keep a little bit back because you may get asked for it. And maybe you have already spent it. So I don't have anything else.
Nope,
Commissioner,
I have nothing.
Commissioner?
I don't have anything.
I don't think I have anything from the public. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We got